Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 335 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, my man?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. That is the truth. We're going to dive straight into the review part of the show here. We're going to start last Friday, the 11th of March at the Montreal Casino in Quebec, Canada. And Yvonne Michel card, of course. Just the main event really to mention. We had Gabriel Maestra, who was 4-0, former interim world champion at 140 or 147, I can't remember now. But anyway, he got in with the undefeated as a pro, former Olympian Taras Shelestzuk, who I think I remember being in London just before Regis Prograis boxed Josh Taylor, because I believe he was sparring with Prograis, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, he got in with Gabriel Maestra, who in his last fight should have lost to Michael Fox, but obviously got the decision in one of the worst decisions I've ever seen, which I seem like I'm saying almost every month now. It's a bad state of affairs, the officiating recently. But anyway, Gabriel Maestra here with a split draw over 10 rounds. A lot of people, I think, were saying that Maestra deserved it, deserved to win the fight perhaps, but I didn't watch it. So I apologise to anyone listening about that one, but it was hard to find a stream for that one. And yeah, Gabriel Maestra now 4-0 with a draw, and Taras Shelestzuk, oh man, I'm really butchering that. He's 19-0 with a draw. Anyway, moving out now to York Hall. This one was also on the Friday. We had a good fight between, let's just talk about the main event really. It's the only fight worth mentioning for me. The main event, Chris Bourque from Streatham, now 10-1. He lost the unanimous decision over 12 against Mark Leach, who has, upset a couple of prospects now. He's now 18-1 with a draw. That one there for the vacant British super bantamweight title. Very pleased for Mark Leach, who of course I believe trains out of the Jamie Moore gym, Nigel Travis. Very good for them, because Mark Leach is a good fighter, obviously now British champion. And, in that gym, obviously with what happened with Jack Catterall the other week, it's good to kind of have a bit of good news or, something good to happen in that gym. So pleased for Mark Leach. Really good fight as well, by the way. Dangerous fighter, Mark Leach. This one took place in Nottingham at the Nottingham Arena. This one was on DAZN. If you haven't seen it, you've got to go and check this fight out. Let's start with the undercard firstly. A win for Calvin Agyarko, now 11-0, a unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Juan Carlos Rubio, who's now 18-2. That one was for the WBA International Middleweight title. Elsewhere on the card, Terry Harper with a win on points over 10 2-minute rounds against Yamila Abelaneda. I don't know what's happening to me today. I feel like I'm butchering a lot of names. Yamila Abelaneda. Sounds like a pasta. Anyway, this one was for the vacant WBA Intercontinental Female Lightweight title. Good win there for Terry Harper, who got cut as well in the third round, but a good return to winning ways for her. She's now 12-1 with a draw. Sandy Ryan, a female fighter, I think trained by Clifton Mitchell. She was 3-0. She's lost her O. They stepped her up a little bit too soon, it would appear. She got in with Erica Farias, who I believe is a former either 1 or 2-time world champion. Farias had a point deducted as well in round 10, the final round of these 10 2-minute rounds, but still it wasn't enough for Sandy Ryan to get it. A split decision loss for Sandy Ryan. So Erica Farias, very pleased for her to not get, robbed or hard done by on the road in the UK, where it's so likely to happen, unfortunately. But good stuff for her. And Sandy Ryan, she can go away and, improve, come back. There was a lot of hype around her, man. She is a good fighter. And I can't take that away from her just on that one performance there. But we'd like to see a rematch, I'm sure. Before I get onto the main event, I've saved this fight here to kind of mention last, but certainly not least. On the undercard, Gary Cully with a win. He's now 14-0. A KO in round 5 against Miguel Vasquez, who's now 44-11. Unbelievable, I've got to say. Down once in the third round, Vasquez, and knocked out. So impressed with Gary Cully, who, doesn't really have the build of a puncher or anything like that. I know that you can't really read into physiques and builds too much when it comes to punching power, but I tell you what, he can bang. He's a 6'2" southpaw, and I tell you what, he's a complete problem. A good few wins in a row now. He's got a lot of momentum behind him, and to knock out Vasquez, it simply doesn't really happen. Let's have a look at who he's been knocked out by. He retired on his stall after 9 rounds against Talani and Bengay. Other than that, the other loss came to Josh Taylor. He's been the distance with Mickey Bay. He's been the distance with Tim Bradley. He's been the distance with Canelo. He's been the distance with Argenis Mendez, O'Hara Davies, in which he beat him but didn't get the decision. Lewis Ritson, in which he beat him and didn't get the decision. There was no need for any judges' scorecards this time. Gary Cully, man, I'm so blown away by how impressive he was. What an emerging Irish talent. And if you're Irish listening to me now, you've got to be super excited about this guy. He is such a good fighter, and I think is a future Irish superstar. He's just got to be built correctly, I guess, marketing wise, but other than that, what he does in the ring, he takes care of business in the ring. As long as someone's taking care of business outside of the ring for him, this guy, honestly, sky's the limit for him. I'm loving what I'm seeing. And the main event, Lee Wood, now 26-2, a TKO in the 12th and final round over the previously undefeated Irishman Michael Conlan, who's now 16-1. Lee Wood down in the first round, Conlan down in the 11th round, which I guess kind of looked like a slip. We're still not too sure. And then, of course, in the 12th and final round, Michael Conlan knocked unconscious and then out of the ring, and he landed on the floor, a hard landing on the concrete floor outside of the ring. I can't even describe it. An absolute crazy fight, and certainly on the shortlist for Fight of the Year. I felt early on Wood was kind of... I think this was the first round. Wood was like controlling the round until he got caught with that, that last punch of the round, which was an overhand left. I think Michael Conlan gave him the eyes downstairs and then, ducked down through that overhand left, and it caught him square on the chin, and Wood goes down. It was a nightmare start. It was a huge knockdown as well. He really hit the deck hard. In the second round, he came out. He still didn't look like he recovered. Lee Wood, the champion, took a few more really big shots. As the fight was going on, it was just getting better and better of a fight because Lee Wood was coming back into it a lot more. He was investing in the body of Conlan, which was an interesting, clever, now looking back, tactic, which I guess was, motored by Ben Davison in the corner. I felt that Michael Conlan was doing sometimes a little bit too much holding, but then at times I felt that Lee Wood would smother his own work. Conlan was, on the ropes at times, getting nailed with shots. And Conlan as well, especially on the inside. He is a vicious fighter, man. Oh my God. On the inside as well. And he was outsmarting Lee Wood for massive parts of the fight. He was winning the fight, let's be completely honest, until the late stages. He was in full control, It was only that Lee Wood started to come on strong late on. But other than that, Michael Conlan pretty much had it in the bag. And I felt that on the inside, you couldn't mess with Conlan, even though people felt that was where Lee Wood's best Lee Wood's kind of best chance was on the inside. And at range, I liked what Conlon was doing as well, doubling up the jab as well at times. So Conlon was fighting a really smart fight early on. And then, like I say, as Lee Wood got back into things, he drops Conlon, a bit of a dubious knockdown. It was, again, the last punch of round 11. So it was a lot like the first round knockdown where Wood was on the floor. It was the last punch of the round. As soon as he beat the count, he went back to the corner and got the minute between rounds. Same thing happened here in round 11 for Michael Conlon. However, it did very much look like a slip, but a punch did land, so you kind of have to give it. It's one of those things you have to give, even though it looked like a slip and probably was a slip. Don't think he was really hurt. Adam Booth in the corner went absolutely crazy, because of course that would have been a 10-8 round for Lee Wood, which he would have really much, very much needed at that point in the fight if he were to try and win on the scorecards, because he was behind, you'd feel, without that 10-8 round. And yeah, so in the 12th and final round, that's when Lee Wood just decided to empty the tank, really. And he knocks Conlon out. I think Conlon was kind of ducking and weaving on the ropes, taking a few shots, but then he ducked right into what looked like, still people are a little bit confused with what shot, with which shot landed. I think it was it was a temple shot. I'm not sure if it was a right or left hand now. I can't remember exactly, but, a perfectly placed shot that Conlon ducked right onto, and he was completely gone. And, Lee Wood gave him about 2 or 3 more as he was punching him through the ropes out of the ring. And as soon as he hit the floor, the referee, I believe it was Steve Gray, waved it off. And of course, rightly so, he was completely out. He was out the same kind of way Tony Bellew knocked out Ilunga Makabu, where he was kind of crouched down, like hunched down, crouching and completely gone. It was like that, but of course on this occasion Conlon was punched through the ropes. Yeah, a mad fight. The comeback was incredible, from losing the fight clearly to coming back and getting, definitely the most brutal knockout of Lee Wood's career. As for Michael Conlon, it's a very, 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 very tough place he finds himself in now. A guy that, of course, had all the promise when he turned pro. Definitely a future world champion in many people's eyes. And he's been quite careful. He's been treading water, as I like to say. As I've said many times, I'm getting a little bit like a broken record now. But Shakur Stevenson and Michael Conlon both turned pro at the same time. And it was, a possible fight for the future. They were both going to be fighting one day, against each other with world titles unifying or whatever. And it's not going to be happening now, of course. Shakur Stevenson has done what he's done, become a 2-weight world champion, and Michael Conlon had the best chance you will get. That's no disrespect to Lee Wood, but you're not going to get a better chance to become a world champion, or at least hold a version of a world title here, the regular WBA belt. And Michael Conlon knocked out like that. It's a tough one. He wants the rematch. I can understand why he'd want the rematch, but if you're Lee Wood, what's the point? You were losing the fight. You weren't going to be outboxing Conlon, and you managed to get a knockout with about a minute and a half left of the 36 minutes of action. So, you came very close to losing. So you don't want that again. I don't think that he needs to take that fight again. Just move on, I'd say, for Lee Wood. But by the way, I will say that 2 of the judges had Lee Wood down by just a point going into that 12th round, and it looked like he was going to win that 12th round the way he started it. So you'd imagine if they gave him that round as well, then 2 of the judges would have had it a draw, and it wouldn't have mattered about the other card, which I think was wide to Conlon. So it would have ended in a draw, a split draw, majority draw, whatever, and Lee Wood would have kept his title, providing he would have won that 12th round, which I think was clear he was going to do. So not much of an uproar. A lot of people were angry about that, but that just is what it is. This one took place on Sunday. It is the final card to mention of the review part of the show. It took place on Sunday in Ontario, Canada. It wasn't on TV. It was at the Rebel Entertainment Complex. A bit of a shocker for me. Samuel Vargas, 31-7 with 2 draws. It was his 41st pro fight, he lost a unanimous decision over 10 rounds for the vacant IBO International welterweight title against Przemysław Ranowski, former opponent of Josh Kelly and Michael McKinson. He lost to both of those guys on points, but he managed to beat Samuel Vargas here, which is definitely the best win of his career. So I'm really pleased for him because he's very much an opponent, a durable, tough, non-puncher of an opponent. But he's managed to pick up a good win against Vargas there, who you'd probably say should, hang him up, I think, now. Losing to this guy here, very surprising for me. And also, the way he got absolutely obliterated in a round by Conor Benn, you'd say that he doesn't have much left to offer to the sport and it's getting dangerous for him. That's it, though, for the review part of the show. The final thing for me to do is to welcome our special guest on this week's show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated WBC International Silver Lightweight Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Sam Noakes. Sam, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks, mate. Glad to be here.
Hey, it's my pleasure to have you on. So, Sam, you're boxing this Saturday at the Wembley Arena on this Avanesian Mets undercard. We'll get to that shortly. First, I want to talk about your pro journey thus far. Obviously, 8-0, 8 KOs. Your gym mate, Archie Sharp's a good friend of mine. He's told me your hands are like bricks. Were you stopping people in the amateurs frequently, Sam, or are you just better suited to the pros?
No, I was stopping people in the amateurs as well. I ended up, I think I had 53 wins and 26 of them were stoppages. And for an amateur, wow, that's a lot of stoppages to get.
Yeah, that's incredible. And obviously you've been a pro now for just under 2.5 years. I think it's this month. You've boxed some of the more known journeymen in the UK. To become a well-known journeyman, you have to be durable. You have to very rarely allow yourself to get stopped. However, you've been knocking these journeymen out that don't get knocked out. It's amazing for your career, but not so much their career. You've probably been responsible for some of these fights falling through because they're not allowed to fight for a month afterwards.
Yeah, no, I always remember my first one was with Chris Hadaway.
Yeah.
He said to me afterwards, he said, you made me lose out on a bit of money on the Warrington undercard. I said, oh, sorry, mate. It's near, I don't know, I can't remember if it was near Christmas or not. I did feel a little bit bad, but you got to do what you got to do, haven't you?
Absolutely. And yeah, just to recap again for the listeners, as you mentioned, your debut against Chris Hadaway, he retired on his store after round 3. To this day, he's only been stopped 8 times in 71 losses. You stopped Lee Connolly, who's only been stopped 8 times in 72 losses. And of course, Naeem Ali, who's only been stopped 3 times in 81 losses. Some people might not appreciate this, but I certainly do. They're all learning fights. Your career obviously is a marathon, not a sprint. To knock out one guy who doesn't get stopped often is impressive, but to do it to all of those guys and more is insane.
Well, I always remember going up against Naeem Ali. Yeah, obviously I was the first one to stop him.
Yeah,
and I remember thinking, because obviously he fought middleweight more through his career than anything. I think he always used to fight the bigger boys, and I thought, I've got a little bit of a tricky one here. But obviously, just coming in, and when I got that one, I was happy with that one because I always remember Al said, he said, I don't think you'll stop him in the corner. And I was like, all right, challenge accepted.
Excellent, man. And of course, your last fight took place in December. First time you'd gone over 5 rounds, of course. Shaun Cooper took you into the 9th of a scheduled 10. I honestly thought you might end up going the distance for the first time. You did manage to get the knockout. Did you also think you might have been going the full 10 and not getting the stoppage?
Yeah, I think I was a little bit wary of how I'd feel in the later rounds. But I remember when I got to the 8th, just as I stood off the stool, I remember I heard my brother shout, right, 3 more rounds, you got 3 more rounds. And I thought, yeah, I can do a quick 3. And I remember just putting my foot on the gas pedal a little bit, and then it come off. I think I caught him with a good left hook, and then that sort of unravelled him a little bit.
Yeah, no, it was another great win, and of course, important to bank the rounds. On to the next one. This Saturday at Wembley Arena, you'll be defending your title against Vincenzo Finiello of Italy. His record's 15-4 with 2 draws, never been stopped, scheduled for 10 again. It'll only be the second southpaw you've boxed as a pro, the other one being Delmar Thomas, who only lasted a round. How do you see this fight playing out, and what should fans expect from you in this performance, Sam?
Well, I reckon I'm going to stop him. Well, I want to stop him anyway, but I think I'm going to go at it with a different mindset with this one because obviously, last one with the Shaun Cooper was quite a controlled performance, yeah, because I was a little bit wary of how I'd be in the later rounds. But now I know I can do it, and I'm just going to go back to the usual fast pace, fast start. Do you know what I mean? And just keep the pressure on. And I know he's never been stopped, but I've got a good record with blokes who've never been stopped, so I reckon I can. Yeah, and I mean, I don't even mind fighting southpaws. It doesn't bother me. If anything, I prefer them. Like, I've got brilliant southpaw sparring in the gym in Elliot Whale, Dennis McCann, Henry. Do you know what I mean? So he's not going to be as tricky as them boys.
And most people say they don't go into a fight looking for a knockout. They say if it comes, it comes. Anthony Yard is completely the other way. He tells me that he doesn't ever want to let it go to the judges. Do you go into a fight looking for a knockout or not, Sam?
I think there's a fine line between wanting it and looking for it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think, like, obviously I always want to stop them, and I've said I want to get my first 10 fights, 10 KOs. So it's in the back of my head anyway. But I feel like, as in when you try too hard, like, you can keep the pressure on and obviously select your shots, right? And I mean, rather than loading up straight away looking for that one punch knockout, like, I'll quite happily throw 3 or 4 light ones at a time and then just get that one big one when it's needed. Do you know what I mean? Get the devastating blow at the right time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how many fights, Sam, ideally do you want to have in 2022? Obviously, this is your first of the year. You're having 10 rounders now, though, so I'm sure you're not going to be as active as you have been. But how many this year would you like, ideally?
I think I'll probably end up having 3. 4 would be nice, but I reckon I'll probably end up having 3, to be honest with you. But I want to keep as active as possible, really, because I don't want to be just waiting about. And I mean, I train all the time. It's not like I have months off or anything. Like, I'll have a week off, and then that's me. Because I just enjoy training. I enjoy being in the gym. Even sometimes it's nice to be in the gym when you're not training for a fight. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you can just go down there with your mates, just do whatever you want, whatever you feel like doing on the day. So I'm ready whenever for most fights, but I reckon it'll probably be 3, I imagine. One in the summer and then probably the back end of the year.
Yeah, I guess so. And what kind of level do you see yourself at right now, Sam? I know it's a tricky question because obviously, you've picked up a WBC silver title. Obviously, people kind of think along the traditional route of British and English, those kind of levels. But the way you're blowing away these kind of journeymen that other, guys that are kind of, I guess, ranked higher than you couldn't do. I mean, it's so confusing. Where do you see yourself, though? That's the question.
I reckon I can mix it with the best of them, to be honest with you. But my honest opinion on it would really, I need to get some tougher rounds because I'm not worried about these boys in the skill set of things. I'm not. But, so for example, for a British title, yeah, be 12 rounds, yeah, and it'll be with Gavin Gwynn or one of, I can't remember the other fighter's name, but he boxed Ryan Sullivan. But they're seasoned pros. They've gone 12 hard rounds, you know what I'm saying? And I think you need that. You can't, because you get the prospects going, I'm ready to go. Like, probably skill-wise, they are, but I think when you get dragged into a rough old fight and then you're 10 rounds and you've got another 2, you can't train for that unless you've done it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting one hearing you say that as well because, there are so many amazing fights, of course, that can be made, and it's so difficult because you've got I'm going to compare you for a moment here with Daniel Dubois, let's say, a guy who's blowing everyone away, and then no one's sure where his level is. People think he's going to be the next coming of Mike Tyson. We see him get in with Joe Joyce. Finally, we kind of see an indicator of where his level may be. With you, it's similar because people are.
That's what I'm saying.
We're rightly so getting carried away because the people you're stopping, by the way, there's not really any heavyweight journeymans that Daniel Dubois blew out. He got rid of guys that have been stopped before. What you've done is incredible.
Oh, thank you very much, mate. I appreciate that. But I think that's what I'm saying. I think you get everyone's in such a hurry. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm a very confident person. Like this is like me saying that's not self-doubt or anything like that. Yeah. It's more just you got to be realistic. Like you got to give these seasoned pros, like regardless if you think they're skillful or whatever, you got to give them the respect they deserve. Like Gavin Gwynn, for example, he is a very, very tough man, and obviously that's like he's durable. And I mean, like if he's there after you've been hitting him for 8-9 rounds, and then you got to do another 3 or 4 with him. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like because obviously Shaun McCoon fought him, didn't he? And he obviously like went into that fight, and then obviously ended up getting stopped in the 7th round. Yeah. So, is that through lack of doing them tough rounds? It's a tough game. I mean, like always remember Archie always said. Well, I mean, when he first come in the gym, he said if you can't rush up, like once you're up there, you're up there. Like that's it. You don't want to rush up there and then like come unstuck. You want to just take your time, do everything properly. Do you know what I'm saying? Because nowadays, once you get one loss, everyone just thinks you're old news.
Yeah, you're right. And another thing that Archie, I don't think made up the quote, but he's told me before, he likes to always say and always remind me, 20 to learn, 20 to earn. I'm sure he's told you that one as well.
Yeah, I remember. I think that's a big Al Smith one, that is.
There we go. Credit to Al. Coming down to my final couple questions for you, Sam. I just wanted to ask, again, it might be a little bit premature, but is there anyone on your radar? I mean, as I say, we've got some great names at lightweight domestically. There's some mouth-watering fights.
I'm not one on my radar, really. Like, I don't really look at other fighters thinking, I want to fight. Like, I don't pick my fights. You know what I'm saying? I'll go in the gym and Al will tell me who I'm fighting, and I'll do it. Like, to be honest, I more look at as in titles. Like, I want to get. If I could get a British title by the end of the year or beginning of the next, that would be perfect. Like, I don't care who it's against. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but I do want that British belt. Like, that's like the first of the meaningful ones. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm over the moon to have a belt already. But you know, like if you put in comparison the WBC silver compared to the British title, like you think that British is something special. I think if you win that as a fighter, that's something special.
Yeah, a lot of history. It's a beautiful belt as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to have one eye on April 15th. Luke Willis and Gavin Gwynn obviously getting it on.
I'll be there anyway because Pierce O'Leary and Elliot Way are on that show, so I'll be at that one.
Excellent.
And I will be watching that.
Okay, and just finally, Sam, before we let you go, if you've got any closing words at all, the floor's yours. Say whatever you like before we wrap it up. And also remember to give the listeners your social media handles where they can follow you.
You put me on the spot here a little bit. I ain't a man of many words, I suppose, but tune in. Watch me Saturday defend my first title defence. And, thanks for having me.
What's your
get me on social media, just on Instagram, Sam Noakes. And that's it, really.
Yeah, Instagram is Sam_Noakes, so SAM_NOAKE, and it's got 2 S's, so SS there. Sam Noakes on Instagram. Listen, Sam, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you, my man. Thank you for your time. Best of luck on Saturday, and we'll speak sometime after, I'm sure.
Thanks very much, mate. Appreciate it.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. We're going to start here with this piece of news. Jason Cunningham will be making I believe it's his first defence of the European title. He gets in with the unbeaten Frenchman, Terry Lecouvier. That one to take place April 16th, live on BT Sport. It's going to be at the Telford International Arena, so good stuff there for Jason Cunningham. Also, in other news, Bakodir Jalalov has joined Probellum. Signed with Probellum now, so he will be fighting on their cards. That's who he's with promotionally. In other news, Echo Esserman will be taking on Darren Tetley. That one to take place on the 29th of April at York Hall. That's going to be a good fight there. Echo Esserman really impressing me. He will be defending there his British, Commonwealth and IBF European welterweight titles there. In other news, let's mention this one here. Matchroom will be going back to Spain. I think they've got 2 cards that they've announced over there. We're going to start with this one. Sandor Martin coming off that excellent win last time out against Mikey Garcia. He gets in with Jose Felix for the WBA International Super Lightweight title. That date is April the 1st, and the other date for the Spain Matchroom cards, we're going to see JJ Metcalf stepping in against Kerman Lejaraga. That one to take place May 20th in Bilbao. So 2 Matchroom Spain cards there. Also, Matchroom Italy have announced 2 cards as well. The first one to take place April 22nd. We're going to see Daniele Scardina, if I'm not mistaken. No, he's in the May 13th one. Sorry, let's start with that one. May 13th, Daniele Scardina gets in with Giovanni De Carolis, and April 22nd is we've got Ivan Zucco, I think it is. He gets in with Marco Nikolic. So again, Matchroom Italy back with 2 cards there. A great schedule as well. I'm going to come to you, Eddie, for your your take on this, but a great schedule that Showtime have announced. All these fights are going to be on Showtime, and I think some of them are going to be on Showtime pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken. Not too sure which ones are pay-per-view, but anyway, here is the list. We're going to start here, and you can tell me which ones you're most looking forward to. First fight night for Showtime PBC, March 26th, so not this weekend but next. We've got Tim Tszyu, the son of Kosazu, getting in with Terrell Gausha, the American Olympian. April 9th, we've got Erickson Lubin getting in with Sebastian Fundora. That's going to be a great fight. April 16th, Errol Spence gets in with Yordenis Ugas there for the WBC, WBA and IBF welterweight world titles. May the 14th, we've got the rematch between Jamel Charlo and Brian Castano. May 21st, we've got the Battle of the Davids. We've got David Benavidez getting in with David Lemieux there for the WBC super middleweight interim world title. May 28th, this is the week after, we get to see it is finally rescheduled. Gervonta Tank Davis getting in with Rolando Romero for the WBA lightweight world title. A brilliant fight for June 4th between Stephen Fulton and Daniel Roman for the WBO and WBC super bantamweight world titles. June the 18th, we've got Jamal Charlo getting in with Maciel Sulecki for the WBC middleweight world title. And then July 9th, Mark Magsayo coming off his win a few weeks back over Gary Russell Jr. He defends against the unbeaten former WBC champion of the world, Ray Vargas. So a good schedule there. Anything you're particularly looking forward to, Eddie? I'm guessing it has to be Fulton and Danny Roman. I mean, wow.
Yeah, that's one of them. I mean, obviously, I want to see my hometown guy do really well, and that's a good, pretty big, interesting fight for him. But is Erickson done? Did I hear Erickson Lubin is fighting
Sebastian Fundora? Yeah,
Sebastian Fundora, the 6 foot.
Towering Inferno. Yep.
Yeah, I really like Erickson Lubin, man. I love his game, the way he fights. He's so professional, he got sharp. He generally has great punch selection. You know, it's just, this is going to be crazy tough. It's going to be a different kind of tough for him. You know what I mean? Because this guy's so rangy, so big. You know what I mean? He fights at range, but he also likes to, come and get involved. So he'll have opportunities. Man, that's interesting. I mean, I kind of want to watch it. I'm going to have a little bit of a rooting interest because I want to see, even though, Sebastian Fundora is fun to, he's fun to watch. He's not a sideshow, but it's just an interesting thing because he's so tall. But I really like Lubin. I really like his game, as well as the fight between Spence and what's my guy's name? Yordenis Ugas. I like that fight. I'm gonna obviously lean towards Spence because I'm not saying it because I feel like Ugas is not the one of the best there. I think he is. But I just think Spence, the way he is, and he shows up on big nights. Every time I've seen him fight a major fight, he's always stepped up to the plate. He's done it time and again, in crucial moments in fights as well. Who could forget the Shaun Porter Spence card, even though a lot of people thought Shaun got that, which, is possible, but he still was there. He was still putting in the effort. He's just, even after the action, he still looked awesome, in my opinion, against Danny Garcia. But Ugas is a problem. He's another guy that shows up, and he's still got he still seems to be like he still has that chip on his shoulder to prove himself, because a lot of people tend to overlook him. You know what I mean? Because he's not one of the marquee names that everybody thinks about in that division. Even though he fought Pacquiao and he got the win over Pacquiao, I think he still has a little bit more proving to do. And they're looking, he beat Pacquiao, but he beat Pacquiao. He's an old Pacquiao. You know what I mean? I don't know if he'll be able to actually do that against, a Spence or one of these other guys. So now he has the opportunity to prove it. It's an exciting thing to look at and to see soon. I hear the fight with Charlo and Brian Castellano, I think.
You ain't got the pronunciation I've got, but go on.
I don't. You're pretty good. You're pretty good with that. That's interesting too. That's another one I want to watch. You know, I want to see. I just want to keep. I want to see the Charlo boys tested. You know, and they got big personalities and attitudes, and you know what I mean. I want to see them have to back it up. You know what I'm saying? I want them in big, interesting fights like these. And you know, it just makes for interesting TV and interesting boxing. I'm just enjoying all of these. I know I'm forgetting probably a couple, but you know, those are the main ones. Of course, the Stephen Fulton one. I want to see the Erickson Lubin and Sebastian Fondor. I definitely want to see that, and you know, and a few of the others. Obviously, just Spence and Ugas another. But I mean, there's a few I probably don't even remember that you mentioned. I'm like, oh crap, salivating for that too. But David Benavidez and David Lemieux. I know, and most likely, David Benavidez is going to slaughter him, and you know, and I could see that. But his punching power, even though he's a lot past it now, is still a factor. So you just can't just go to sleep on him, because Benavidez is a tough guy. He's going to try to come and try to dominate him and try to take every aspect of the whole, you know, the entire fight out of him. So that may mean, you know, some exchanges, some interesting, you know, dangerous points for him. And it's just, you know, it's another interesting kind of card to go along in this slew of of craziness with these fights upcoming. So I'm happy that I can get a chance to see it.
Yeah, me too. It's a great schedule from Showtime. I mean, I'm just going to run through them. Just in my opinion, I really like the Tim Tszyu and Terrell Gausha fight. I think that's a great opportunity for Tim Tszyu, who obviously isn't just the son of a legend. I think he is kind of stepping out of that shadow of his father. He seems to be the goods. Erickson Lubin, Sebastian Fondor, cracking fight. Love it. Absolutely love it. Charlo Castaño, to see another fight between them two is fantastic. The first one was really close. A lot of people felt Castaño did enough. Most people actually felt he did enough. Benavidez Lemieux, I love Benavidez, been on the show a few times, really cool guy, but not overly looking forward to that one. I think, you know, he's going to just have too much for Lemieux, especially up at, you know, obviously it's at super middleweight. I think Lemieux definitely not a super middleweight, and especially going in with such a big super middle like Benavidez. Javante Davis Romero, it is what it is. It'll be fun while it lasts. Stephen Fulton, Danny Roman, going to be a great fight. It's another busy style, just like Figueroa for Fulton to deal with. I think he's had a great fight with Figueroa there to prepare himself for this kind of style. Jamal Charlo Selecki, not really interested in that one, unfortunately. And Magseo against Vargas, I'm not overly excited about that one. A little side note about Errol Spence and Ugas as well. You mentioned Ugas obviously coming off a great win over Pacquiao. Really happy for him to get the opportunity as well. I'm a big fan of Ugas. Doesn't speak a word of English, but everything he posts on social media is translated to English, so he caters for his English speaking fans, whether they're from the UK or US or wherever. I like him. I really like him. He's a cool guy. Doesn't really do anything outstanding. He just does all the basics well. He's one of those kind of fighters, like a Badu Jack. Doesn't do anything amazing, but has all the basics, you know, down to a T. But yes, a big ask against Errol Spence, who I think for a lot of the fights, Errol Spence athleticism wins him a lot of these fights, and I think it could come into play here. And another little side note for Jamel Charlo Castaño 2 on the undercard, an IBF welterweight title eliminator between Jaron Ennis and the undefeated Canadian Custio Clayton, who of course is 19-0 with one draw. That draw against Lipanets as well, a draw over 12 rounds there for the IBF interim world welterweight title, a man of course who Jaron Ennis shared the ring with as well, so there's that common opponent there. But anyway, moving on to the preview part of the show, let's get into this. Let's try and go through it quite quickly here. This one starts tomorrow night, Friday 18th of March at the Duty Free Tennis Stadium in Dubai. We've got John O'Carroll, 21-2 with a draw, friend of the show, in a 10-rounder against Serif Gurdijek, who is 21-6. We've got Shabazz Massoud, a young prospect who I don't want to say he's training with someone because I think I might get it wrong, but I've heard a lot about this guy, and I think he's trained by, I don't want to say it because I might get it wrong, but I think I know his trainer. 9-0 in a 10-rounder against Yon Boyo, who's got a tremendously looking padded record, 43-6. I can't remember who he got in with, Boyo. I want to say it was someone like... oh man, it might have been Anthony Croller or someone like that. I'm sure I've seen him before. But anyway, massive step up for Shabazz Masood, even if the opponent does have a padded record. A really fun heavyweight fight on the card as well. Jalalov, as I mentioned in the news part, he's signed with Probellum. He's 9-0 with 9 KOs. He's in an 8-rounder here against Kamil Sokolowski. 11-25 with 2 draws. That could be fun there. Elsewhere on the card, we have Estelle Yoka Mosley. She is the wife of Tony Yoka and also an Olympic gold medalist. She is the IBO World Female Lightweight champion. She gets in with Yanina del Carmen Lescano, who is 10-1 over 10 2-minute rounds there. And also on the card, Oshaki Foster, 18-2, a man that Regis Prograis has been telling me how good he is for years and years. He gets his chance here to perform against Mohamed Kuja Yakubov, who's 18-0, the undefeated fighter. And he was formerly ranked number 1 in the world with the WBO at super featherweight. He's now number 2. Oshaki Foster as well, you know, closing in, I guess, on some kind of a title shot. So this is a great fight. It really is, between 2 world-ranked fighters here. That's it for Dubai. Moving out now to... We're going down under here to the Star Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. Friend of the show, former IBF featherweight world champion Billy Dibb, 47-6 these days. Still fighting despite retiring in the ring after losing to Tevin Farmer. I remember him giving his post-fight interview in the ring and he was in tears. It made me sad. I like Billy Dibb, really nice guy. I remember having him on the show years ago and he was opening up to me about the very tragic loss of his wife, when he lost his wife to cancer, and it was a terrible story. He was sleeping on the floor of the hospital next to her in bed. You know, a former world champion sleeping on the hospital floor with his wife, who had about something like a month to live when they found when they diagnosed her. Sorry, with cancer. It was terrible. Billy Dibb, lovely guy, and you know, got a place in my heart for him ever since that. He gets in with an undefeated fighter called Jacob. And I don't know how to pronounce his surname because it's just N-G. So I don't know if it's Jacob Ng or just Jacob Nug. I've got no idea, but we're going to just call him Jacob. 15-0 is for the IBF International Lightweight title and the WBO Oriental Lightweight title. All the best there to Billy Dibb. Up at lightweight, boy oh boy. Moving out now to another part of Australia. This one takes place at the Melbourne Pavilion in Victoria, Australia. Over here, former world champion Sam Solomon, 47-16 with a draw in an 8-rounder against Jesse White, who's 6-2 for the vacant Australia Victoria State middleweight title. Fighting for a state title here. Okay, this one takes place on Saturday night at the Gimnasio Municipal Jose Neri Santos, Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico. There you go. Everyone's been waiting weeks for that. But it's a sneaky fight here on the undercard. It's not even main event as far as I'm aware. He snuck into Mexico here. Jose Zepeda, one of the best fighters at 140. 35-2 his record in a 10-rounder here against Francisco Javier Perez, who's 18-12 with a draw. Very sneaky fight there, gone under the radar massively. This one takes place back in Dubai at the Duty Free Tennis Stadium. So there's a fight card there on Friday and Saturday. We did the Friday one. Here's the Saturday one. Top of the bill, Sonny Edwards, 17-0, defending his IBF World Flyweight title against Mohamed Wasim, who's 12-1. Supposed to be a really good fight, that one, but Sonny Edwards, I really enjoy watching him, to be honest with you. So hard to hit the guy. Definitely one of the best fighters we have, pound for pound, in the UK, and obviously a flyweight, with a lot of skills. I think possibly the best flyweight in the world. Elsewhere on the card, friend of the show, Regis Prograis, 26-1 in a 10-rounder against Tyrone McKenna, 22-2 with a draw. I'm looking at the odds on that fight. I can see Prograis getting the stoppage there. I really want to see if that's worth worth betting on. Elsewhere on the card, we've got TJ Doheny, former world champion, 22-3 in a 10-rounder against Cesar Juarez, who's 27-10. That's about it really for that card. Moving out now to the Wembley Arena in Wembley, London, United Kingdom. Topping the bill over here, David Avanesian, friend of the show, 28-3 with a draw in a 12-rounder against Oskari Metz, who's 15-0. A defence here of Avanesian's EBU European welterweight title. It's a keep busy fight. I think there's big fights that, you know, him and the team are chasing, and this is kind of just a fight to stay active. I think he's supposed to beat this guy. I don't know much about this guy, to be honest, but it's another undefeated fighter, and I'm expecting Avanesian to look good. Elsewhere on the card, a really good fight actually. This could be really interesting. Hamza Shiraz, 14-0, coming off that controversial win last time out against Bradley Skeet. He's in a 10-rounder against Jez Smith, 13-4 with a draw. Jez Smith been given quite a bit of notice for this fight, so that's quite dangerous. This one's for the vacant WBC International Silver Middleweight title. Elsewhere on the card, we spoke to him a few moments ago. Sam Noakes, 8-0 with 8 KOs in a 10-rounder against Vincenzo Finiello, who's 15-4 with 2 draws. This one for Noakes' WBC International Silver Lightweight title. We've also got Mark Chamberlain, 9-0 in a 10-rounder against Jeff Afori, former opponent of Archie Sharp, 11-3 with a draw. We've got Louis Lin, 10-0 in a 10-rounder against James Beats Jr., 14-2 there for the WBC International Silver Featherweight title. We've got Dennis McCann, 11-0 in an 8-rounder against Charles Tondo, who's 12-4 with 2 draws for the vacant WBO Youth Bantamweight title. I think we've also got Sonny Liston Ali as well on the card, 2-0 in a 6-rounder against Lee Glover, who's 11-8. Best name in boxing, Sonny Liston Ali. That's a good card. I really, really, really like that card. I really do like that card. Again, that's going to be at the Wembley Arena on BT Sport this Saturday. Moving out now to the Hilton Hotel in Newcastle. Friend of the show and friend of Eddie's, Dave the White Rhino Allen, 19-5 with 2 draws in a 4-rounder against Milan Paunov, who's 5-8. All the best there to Big Dave Allen. Coming down to the final 2 cards. This one takes place at the USC Galen Center in Los Angeles, California. Unfortunately, the main event's fallen through, you know, with about 2 or 3 or 4 days out from the fight night, which is devastating, really. The main event was supposed to be Virgil Ortiz Jr. defending, well, I don't think he had a belt, but fighting our very own undefeated Michael McKinson. It was going to be a really exciting fight. It was going to be interesting to see how Ortiz would deal with McKinson's style. McKinson's very tricky style. But obviously it's fallen through, and Ortiz was rushed to hospital with a condition. I've forgotten what it's called now, but it's very, very serious. I've heard that you can, like, you can, in some bad cases, you'd have to have a part of your body amputated and stuff like that. It's like poison in his blood flow or whatever. They've caught it early, but obviously the fight's no longer going ahead. Prayers up to Virgil Ortiz Jr. Was you going to say something, Eddie?
I was going to ask, was it his appendix bursting? Was that what it was? His appendix?
No, I've forgotten what it's called now. It was something tricky. It is, oh God, rhabdomyolysis or something like that.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar.
Yeah,
I was just wondering if it was something like that, because I was thinking something similarly with the appendix. But yeah, I got you.
Yeah, it can. It's basically a breakdown of muscle tissue that releases a damaging protein into the blood, and it can be really dangerous. It says here this muscle tissue breakdown results in the release of a protein into the blood, and it can damage the kidneys as well. So yeah, it's a terrible thing there. Prayers up to him, and obviously devastated for Michael McKinson, who's had a great camp, flown over there to the US, and then a few days before the fight, the biggest fight of his career, by the way, it's just been snatched from him. And I don't think he's going to be fighting on the card now. But elsewhere on the card, we've got Alexis Rocha, who is 18-1 in a 10-rounder against the undefeated friend of the show, 15-0 with a draw, Blair Cobbs. Blair Cobbs as well has called out McKinson, said fight me instead, but he's fighting Alexis Rocha, who, by the way, some people are actually tipping to beat Cobbs. We shall see. We've got Bektemir Melikuziev 8-1, still carrying that one loss where he was devastatingly knocked out by Gabe Rosado. He gets in with David Zagara, who's 34-7. We've also got our very own Ramla Ali on the card, 4-0 in an 8-round contest, 8 2-minute rounds against Shelley Barnett, who's 5-6 with 2 draws. I think Ramla Ali's still managed by Anthony Joshua. And moving out now to the Madison Square Garden Theatre, New York, USA. On the undercard, we have Xander Zayas, the highly touted prospect from Puerto Rico, 12-0 in an 8-rounder against Quincy Lavez, who's 12-2 with a draw. Nothing really else on the undercard to mention. I'm going to come to the main event, and I'm going to come straight to you, Eddie, because you are more, I guess, recently updated on the opponent. But let's talk about the main man in the home corner, Edgar Berlanga, 18-0. This one's for the WBO, NABO super middleweight title. Obviously, we remember Edgar Berlanga at one point absolutely blowing everyone away that stepped in the ring with him. He was 16-0 with 16 first-round knockouts, and then the invincibility disappeared. He went the distance with Damond Nicholson, who most people thought he'd stop. And then after that, he went the distance and was dropped against the Argentinian Marcelo Esteban Caceres, who we remember as well, I think gave a little bit of trouble to Billy Joe Saunders, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. But anyway, Billy Joe Saunders was able to stop him though. And again, he goes a distance and gets dropped, Berlanga. So he's 18-0, 16 first-round KOs, but the last 2 fights haven't been that impressive. He gets in with former Triple G victim Steve Rose. Talk to me, Eddie. How does the fight play out?
Honestly, I see Steve Rose.
I know you're not the biggest fan of Steve Rose.
It's not to say he's not, I'm not. I don't want to seem like it's just antagonistic towards what he is as a fighter, but he has experience. He has certain levels of ability. But I just think in this kind of a situation with this kind of fighter in front of him, I just don't think it's going to be much opposition, and that's just my opinion. Berlanga has obviously had some recent tough fights, but that's boxing. Eventually, they're all going to run into those tough fights. Once you start stepping into the limelight, you're going to start fighting guys you recognize. You're going to see guys across the ring from you that you only seen on television. You know what I mean? And you've heard of, and obviously you've seen. Some of them you've probably fought, came up fighting with, but in those cases, some other cases, you're going to see people across the ring that you even somewhat idolized. You know what I mean? So, you're going to face the kind of opposition that can take you out. And it's just part of it. It just comes with the territory. If you keep winning and keep moving on, you'll be okay. I just don't see no disrespect to this guy. I just don't see Steve Rose as being enough of a speed bump that's going to put him in, I just don't see it. Now, I watched Steve Rose in his last fight, with a little known guy who's just a keep busy fight. And he obviously looked good for what was in front of him. But we all know that, you're a product of your competition. If your competition is up and you do well against it, then okay, bam, you're respected. I'm not saying that he hasn't done well in other fights with better competition, but it's just what I've seen, his ability, certain things that he does. I just don't see it posing too much of a problem. That's no disrespect to Steve Rose. He's a professional. He's a professional at a fairly high level. I just don't think, in my humble opinion, my honest opinion, that he's going to give Edgar Berlanga the kind of problems that maybe, I don't know, a few people may think. I just think I think he's just on another level than him. No disrespect.
Yeah, it's a fair point. It is a fair point. The nicest thing I can say about Steve Rose is that he and Edgar Berlanga both share a common opponent in Damond Nicholson. And obviously, Damond Nicholson was the first person to take Berlanga the distance, and he lost by decision. And also, Steve Rose beat Damond Nicholson on decision as well, and Rolls actually dropped Nicholson in the first round, whereas Berlanga, the big puncher, with all 16 KOs in the first round, didn't drop Demond Nicholson. So that's the only thing I can say about Rolls that makes him look kind of cool there. But other than that, he is 37 years of age. He is really and truly a middleweight, not a super middleweight. And the one fight that was the highlight of his career was the fight against Golovkin, where Golovkin just pretty much ran him over. To be honest, I say ran him over. He hung in there. He showed some guts. He showed some toughness. He showed some skills, really. There's argument that he won one of the 3 rounds that were completed before the knockout in the 4th round, but when he got knocked out, he really did get knocked out, and it was what it was. But all the best to both guys there. I don't really care who wins, but be interesting to see if Berlanga can get another knockout. We shall see. That's about the only excitement in it for me. I think there's a lot of bets possibly for this weekend. There's a lot of action all over the place, so perhaps I'll put together some kind of accumulator, or as they say in the US, a parlay for our listeners. If anyone wants my picks, then hit me up. But anyway, that is it though for part 2. In part 1 we did the review part and we had our special guest Sam Noakes. In part 2 we did the news, and I've just wrapped up the preview part just there with Eddie. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 335 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge thank you to our special guest this week, the undefeated knockout artist, Mr. Sam Noakes. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. There has been 1 or 2 pieces of news break whilst we've been recording the show. Friend of the show, Michaela Mayer, will be defending her unified world titles against recent Katie Taylor opponent Jennifer Han. That one goes down in Costa Mesa on April 9th. In other news, Fraser Clark has been forced out of his proposed fight next weekend due to a hand injury, wishing him a speedy recovery. And lastly, the Errol Spence UGAS undercard has partially been announced. We're going to see Isaac Cruz take on Yuriorkis Gamboa, so 2 former opponents of Gervonta Davis. Jose Valenzuela takes on Francisco Vargas, and Cody Crowley takes on Josecito Lopez. But that's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.